Welcome back. Sorry, let me get tuned up here. All right. Thank you. That was, I had to keep that low register. Sorry about that. Anybody know what that was? I'm curious. How old am I? Time After Time, that's a good one, but no. Jurors 1225, yes, fall tour, as far as I know. We'll let you know if it gets changed, but it's gonna happen, so. Let's see, anybody throw out what song that was? So let me scroll back down. Thank you, Thomas. Pearl Jam. That's right. What song? Am I the only one that knows that? Come on, you guys. Oh, man. Pearl Jam. You know, probably a lot of you people out there are like, And I get it. You know, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I probably, if I'm being honest with myself, I haven't followed Pearl Jam since Vitology. That doesn't mean I wrote them off. It doesn't mean, yes, thank you, Some Point Kid, number 3, release me. Different lyrics. I'm sorry, it sounded like different lyrics because I was singing it differently. I can't really, where I'm at here, I can't really belt, you know what I mean? So I have to adapt the scale, as it were. I've had this conversation with many people, and mostly people in my age group, right, bracket. But for those of you who maybe weren't 13 years old, yes, you did get it right. In 1990, you know, in the early 90s, 91, 92, then I don't think you know, and you know, I'm not faulting or criticizing or trying to have like some kind of like platform of I'm cooler, because that's not what I mean. But it's hard for anyone who wasn't there at that time, okay, like 13, 14, to really understand how just music was changing. You know what I'm saying? Like, grunge became like a really big fad. I realized that. And, you know, I'm sure like 13-year-old me pushed that quite along on its way, you know. But there was something about 10, that album 10, that when I heard it, it's a magical album, you know, and I don't mean to sound like magical, but it really is. There's some beautiful, beautiful songs on that album. Garden, like seriously, if you guys, you maybe have heard Pearl Jam, you've maybe listened to 10, and you might be like, dude, I hate Pearl Jam. I challenge you, go back and listen to it now. Go back and listen to 10. Dare I say that a lot of us here, dare I assume, are into somber, dark themes in our music. I challenge anyone to convince me otherwise that album 10 is not brimming with all those things. The song Black, Garden, oh my God, man, go listen to Oceans. You know, in that song, which was Release, I just remember sitting around listening to those songs and just being transported, you know what I mean? Like, it was some of my fondest memories, I think, of becoming like a teenager and all that stuff. I was sitting around playing my Sega Genesis, listening to Pearl Jam, hanging out with my friend Chris Richardson, just listening to this stuff. And 10 is the first album I ever heard my voice to. Okay, and I'm not saying that's much now, but it was, I mean, I was a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember sitting in my room singing these songs and like hearing my voice going, I want to do this. You know, bands like The Doors came along, and I've talked about them, and that kind of solidified it, made this, packed the snowball in a little more. But yeah, I was just thinking of that song, you know what I mean? A friend of mine, his father passed away recently, and you know, yesterday was Father's Day, so I was just thinking about him, and I was thinking of that song, you know, and how it's got a lot of notes of regret and you know, relationship turmoil in that regard. So I just wanted to play that for him. So anyway, let's see here. I'm going to read some of these comments. Yeah, you know, I mean, it's covers. You should cover the songs that mean something to you. You know what I mean? So Thomas, hold on. You have another question here. It says, "Time to come clean about the sounds of the bat and the bat whispers. Every time I'm playing that album in the background, those sounds stop the conversation." Are you talking about At the very, very end, you're not talking about the rain and the thunder and the bats, right? What that is that is actually, if I remember correctly, I have a lap or like a bottleneck on the string, and I was tuning and detuning up here while I was sliding my finger on it. So it was giving it that, that I can't do it without a slide, but that kind of wobbly slide sound. It's a lot of experimental stuff. We always love doing that with Blitzkid. I mean, we walked into the studios when we recorded Trace a Stranger with a set of bagpipes. I had a set of bagpipes that I delivered like 455 pizzas to buy one year. And I remember like our engineer being like, "What are you doing with that?" And we're like, "Bagpipes, bro. Fire up the mics." So, yeah, 10, Soundgarden, Louder Than Love. Again, you know what I mean? Like that whole time period, I think it's really like what stuck with you first. Alice in Chains is a big band for me. Love Alice in Chains. Lane fucking Staley, man. I remember when he died, and it was so frustrating. I was at TB's house. I just got home from I was running merch for a band, and I just come home from that tour, and I remember seeing the news, and just being so bummed out, man, that it was just like a blip. Like I was like, MTV, come on, man! Like how much of your way have you lost? You know what I mean? And if you guys like, I'm not even gonna attempt playing this song, but damn, dude, Mad Season. If you don't want to listen to 10, don't listen to 10. Fine. All right, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna twist your arm. But Mad Season, Above, that album is incredible. If I can remember, the only part I know, my favorite song is River of Deceit. No. I'll have to practice that. I'll come back for that with you guys. Good song, though. I know that much. Where's TB? TB, where are you at? I know you know this riff. The way it kicks in. It's up. I think it's, am I right, any Mad Season fans? Is it? I think it's up. It's that. My pain is self-chosen. At least, so the prophet said. I could either drown or pull off my skin and swim to shore. A head full of lies is the waste tied to my waist. I'm sorry. Beautiful song. It's a shame about Lane Staley. I always loved that song too because he brought up the prophet. It's easy to miss that lyric, that line. When he says, "My pain is self-chosen, at least so the prophet says." Since we're talking about books, Lord of the Flies, literature. If you guys are unfamiliar with The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, you need to go read that. I've been carrying a copy of that book with me on tour, as I travel, wherever I go. I've had that book with me. I'm not a religious man per se when it comes to, like organization and like deism and things like that. think there are many paths to the top of the mountain, you know? Sorry. If I had to give myself some religious text, it's The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. There's a line in that where he says, our pain is self-chosen. That's where Lane Staley, I realized that, like later, once I started reading The Prophet, I was like, oh my God, that's where that line came from. Which makes it all the more just like sad what happened to him, because, like, The Prophet's a very spiritual work, and, clearly he died of drug overdose, complications of that, but just goes to show, there was like a reaching and a searching, you know what I'm saying? So it always bums me out to see that. So it just bothers me that Lane Staley is not, popping up more. Anyway, Brandon the Phantom, I was always more of an Alice in Chains fan. Nutshell's a deep song. Absolutely, man. Jar of Flies, dude. Jar of Flies is an amazing, amazing, amazing EP, album, whatever you want to call it. Don't Follow, great song. Well and Wasp, no words, great song. Everything about it's great. AJ Lopez says there's fart sounds and a girl laughing at the end of A Perfect Sleep. So what that's the sound. Okay, so I'll give you a real quick little backstory on that song. The sounds are, I think it's just like ambience, because I pulled the laughing and the song at the end of A Perfect Sleep off of old cassette that I had, that I guess my grandfather had recorded of my mom. Okay. And The Perfect Sleep is actually about my mother, because my mom had passed away, some time before, apparitional. Okay. And that song is more or less, like my song to her. So when I found that tape, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to blend this in, make it kind of work, because that was like a song I remember her always singing. So that's when you hear the girl laughing. That was a very young Mama Goolsby on there. So now you know. She could have farted, I don't know. Right on, man. I'm glad we could raise you guys from a baby bat. Hell yeah. Jar of Flies, Lord of the Flies. This is the fly-themed album episode. And for that, I should play this song. Let's see if I can remember it. Hey, what's the point of this? Oh, fuck. Do you guys remember that song? Oh, hey, what's your favorite song? Maybe we could hum along. I think you're smart, you sweet thing. Tell me your name, I'm dying in a ooh. Got you where I want you. Ooh. Got you where I want you. Please, somebody remember this song. Hey, what's it, babe? Maybe just a smile. Oh, hey, did you know that I could dance? Can we talk for a while? I think you're smart, you sweet thing. Give me your name, I'm dying here and ooh. Got you where I want you. Now, got you where I want you. Oh shit, he raps. I want you. Suffer, suffer, you don't get no rubber. When you rap with me, you rap with me like no other. Suffer, suffer, you don't get no rubber. When you rap with me, you rap with me like no other. Some words I have no idea what he's saying. I'm not even gonna try to rap. I think he says, suffer, suffer, you ain't got no rubber. We'll stop that before it goes down any more Dark paths. You know what? Blitzkid covered that song. We did that at one point live. There's some video of us doing The Flies, Got You Where I Want You. And I'll be damned if it didn't sound good. We pumped it up. So we made it work. Sorry, that was impromptu. I should have prepared. Maybe next week I'll play it for you. Weird, going down the 90s rabbit hole. So listen, you guys, I've got 9% battery left on my my iPad here. So what I wanted to do was talk about, real quick, Beauty and the Beast. And if you're just joining us, not the Disney movie, although, you know, kudos to Disney. But I'm talking about the old 1940s Beauty and the Beast. So I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to watch it. I don't know if anybody's even watching any of these movies that I'm suggesting, but if you did and you want to sound off on it, talk about it, throw out some comments, I will be addressing those. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep rolling through. Watched it but couldn't find the subtitled version. Oh man, it's a bummer. Hey, there you go. Practice your French. It's a great thing about that movie, though, is luckily it's Beauty and the Beast, so you know the story, right? It's more or less just following along with the action, and that's what's beautiful about that movie is it moves like a dream. It's very fluid, much like Der Vampire, how we had that as the week before as a movie. There's so many great scenes in there, you know, and I'm not pooping on like CGI. I think CGI is great. But movies like Beauty and the Beast just go to show how inventive, you know, special effects were at that time. For example, when she falls through the wall, you know what I mean? Like, it's so simple when you think about that. It's just a hole and then the satin and turn the camera and boom. The hands with the torches, incredible. Things like that. Even just the Beast himself. You know, I have a lot of friends that work in special effects. One of my very best friends, a gentleman by the name of Cortland Hull, he runs the Witch's Dungeon, which is the longest running horror movie, memorabilia, whatever you want to add to it, museum in the world, up here in Connecticut. He did a model of the Beast for his dungeon. So if you ever go there, it's in Bristol, Connecticut. It's always open around Halloween. You can see the Beast, but herring, as they call it, herring, any type of figure is like laborious. It's time. It's time requisite. It takes what's the word I'm looking for? Takes a lot of time. And it's really hard. You know what I'm saying? You just look at the Wolfman. You know, the Kurt Siodmak Wolfman. You know, that came out in the 40s around the same time. Jack Pierce did a great job, you know, with the yak hair. But, you know, you look at it and you realize, you know, like it kind of follows like an afro and like sideburns and a beard. So there's like, it's still like, it's human. But like with Beauty and the Beast, I mean, everything. Do you know what I'm saying? Like his cheeks, his eyelid, his under eyes, his lids, everything was in hair, and it had to be, you know, in the right direction. So the fact that they were able to pull that off, you know, it's hard for people to do that now. You know what I mean? So shout out to those guys for making that work. And the slow motion glide walk, yeah, exactly. It's a really whimsical movie. Do you know what I mean? Love it. It's like a storybook. You know, that's the thing. You don't really need to know what you could pick up, you know, Little Red Riding Hood, okay, and you could look down and it would be in Croatian, and even if you didn't speak Croatian, chances are you could get through the story, right? It's all in the picture. It's all in what the visuals are doing once you know the story. And that's where this movie really shines, I thought. You know, it takes a story that you already know and it turned it into poetry. Because, you know, Beauty and the Beast is, I mean, you know, it's a romance, right? But it's a dark romance. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to forget that angle of it, and that's what I love about this movie, is it really pulls that to the surface. So I'm glad you guys liked it. The sisters were the worst. One of Danzig's favorite movies. There you go. Amadana says, I have a question about Vampire. Was Vampire some kind of inspiration for this song, for Vampire? Yes, it was. The song that she's speaking of is off the 1476 album, A Wolf's Age. That's one of the songs that was sent to me as music, and I came up with the vocal melody and the patterns. And I knew I wanted it to be about Der Vampire, just because I kind of, I just didn't want to like recite it, even though we did call it Vampire, which we kind of went back and forth with a couple of different titles. So I'd come up with the melody, and I knew I kind of wanted to sing it like very like kind of Johnny Cash-ish and real low baritone. And lyrically, I started coming up with ideas, but that's when I turned it over to Rob, because he's always like so just exact with the lyrics, and that's what I always loved about 1476 and A Wolf's Age was, the lyrics were always so deep. You know what I mean? They painted pictures. They were textured and loaded. Do you know what I mean? They weren't just like, there's a mouse in the house, get it out, or my arm is made of rocks, the golem, whoa, 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 so yeah, that's how that one kind of came along, your Vampire. So yes, you're correct. Amber says everything about it's just enchanting and magical, going back to Beauty and the Beast. It is, it's very, there's not a lot of fantasy offerings out there that border like horror. If I had to think of a recent submission, I would say Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro. That's a very that to me felt in many respects like a modern day Beauty and the Beast in terms of this version of Beauty and the Beast. So you just said the same thing. Sorry, I just saw that. Someone says Danzig movie tries to be like Beauty and the Beast, just a lot worse and hilariously bad. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard similar comments. So I'm not hoarding all the Hollow Bodies LPs. They're all sold out. I do have some CDs left. So if you're interested in CDs, I don't have them up on the store right now, but I will have some new stuff up soon. I'm when I can get back to project land and get everything back, out, on the schedules that I already had planned. So now I have things backing up, things I wasn't doing before this started that I was going to be working on after where I should be now. It's all happening now. But a reissue of Hollow Bodies is going to definitely be one of those things. So I'll have that on vinyl at some point. I'm glad you like the vinyl. I appreciate it. I kind of wanted to go for something, Victorian. I've always been inspired by Victorian aesthetic, not just imagery, but the symmetry in Victorian art and even literature. There's a symmetry to the literature too, particularly in the ghost stories. I feel like I don't know. It's just it's a lost art. And I like dredging that stuff up and reappropriating it when I can. Colored vinyl, yeah. So the last one was Arsenic Green. The reason why it was called Arsenic Green was relating to Victorian imagery. If you were a belle, if we're going to go use the Beauty and the Beast reference here, if you were a belle in the Victorian era, one of your most prized possessions, and to show your affluence, would be to have a green dress. So there was a time in society where something as simple as a green satin dress meant that you were, the paramour of, your social circles or whatever. Interestingly enough, what wasn't being anticipated, on a chemistry hadn't really reached its, heyday yet. That green was achieved through arsenic. And what would happen is, much like myself right now, in stifling rooms and heat at these parties. Once, the woman was sweating, this arsenic would make its way into the pores, make its way into the system. It's toxic, obviously, and it would cause death. So I always felt there was like a morbid beauty in all that, you know what I'm saying? Here's this beautiful dress, as a symbol of beauty in society, but at a price. So that's why it's an Arsenic Green. The reissue, though, just to kind of keep things, collectible for people who already have the first issue, I'm going to flip the color scheme. So it's going to be more of like a bronze, brass, vinyl, and more of like same deal, like bronze color scheme instead of green. So yeah, like the radium watches, that's insane. Exactly. I mean, that wasn't even that long ago when you think about it. I mean, like we should have known better. People shouldn't have been putting radium on their faces at that point. So anyway, all right, you guys, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and pop off of here. I really appreciate you guys staying on here with me. I know we're going on an hour and a half now. These things get kind of long. I appreciate it. One thing that I do want to note is I think that I'm going to be moving these episodes. I'll get to the new movie. I think I'm going to be moving these episodes to bi-weekly, so once every other week. I'm trying not to move them to monthly. I want to keep them more often. And by changing it, by reducing the amount of times I do this, that's not indicative of like a lack of interest or desire to do this. As I said, I'm always happy to be here and hang out with you guys. I really look forward to it. I'm kind of in a phase of working on a bunch of stuff right now, creatively, musically, artistically, on all these other angles where I want to get into that, you know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to get into that headspace. And I want to come back with some of that stuff to show you. So that's probably what we're going to be doing. I'll keep you posted. I'll make an announcement once we decide what's going on, but definitely we'll still be here. And I'm glad you guys are still here. I mean, I think we're on like episode 12, and like I'm in no way, shape, or form like bored. I'm very happy to be doing these. So again, thanks for always coming on. Film for next week. I've already done a Val Lewton movie, and I'm trying to spread the love. We did The Cat People, but I don't know, man. I the more I dive into Val Lewton, and I guess like the stories behind his productions, the more I've discovered, and I've recently, like through that, renewed my interest in Val Lewton, like beyond what it already was. If you guys missed one of the earlier episodes, we were doing The Cat People, as I just said, but that's a Val Lewton movie. The thing about Val Lewton is interesting is he kind of fell into the horror department. It wasn't anything where he was like, I want to be a horror producer. It's all kind of Orson Welles' fault. And without jumping into all these side stories, RKO had, on the heels of Orson Welles doing, and this is a really cool story, if you guys aren't familiar with it, we're all familiar with War of the Worlds, and when Orson Welles did the radio broadcast, it created like national pandemonium. Everyone thought that little green men from Mars were invading America. And he got in a lot of trouble for that, that you couldn't do that back then. And like it was stated at the beginning that it was a recitation of the story, like an adaptation. But people must have missed it because they were watching another show. And then I think like when that musical guest on that show came on, people were like, and they came over to War of the Worlds. So they tuned in during all this. But it created a sensation. So Hollywood obviously came knocking, and they were like, yo, Orson Welles, you're a sensation. We want to work with you. And a lot of people, Universal, MGM, RKO, were courting him, and RKO won. They gave him full creative control over 2 movies, and one of those was Citizen Kane, which, interestingly enough, was kind of loosely based on, Randolph Hearst, or the Hearst magnate from the printing empire, who also happened to be the father of Patty Hearst that the song She by the Misfits was about. So he was not happy about it, so he was trying to stop the movie from coming out. And he did a lot of like crazy shit. That's a story in itself, but the movie came out, did really well. So they put Orson Welles on another movie. The second movie, he all but bankrupted the entire company. Movie was a flop. They were out of money. Val Lewton, who was working for David O. Selznick over at MGM, he left. He got the job offer to come to RKO. They were like, look, we're starting a new division in our horror. And you guys have probably heard the story, but, horror died, after, in mid-30s. It wasn't, there was a big gap between stuff like The Invisible Man and The Wolfman. What had happened was there was a theater, I think the Regina Theater, was about to go out of business. It was just a theater. They were getting no sales. No one was coming. So they just decided to do a triple bill. They did Frankenstein. They did Dracula. It blew up, and it saved the theater money hand over fist. Universal saw this, and then they started doing it nationwide, and they made a boatload of money. And then they realized we should reboot horror, and that's where the Wolfman came in. And that's when they launched Lon Chaney Jr. Creighton as their new star, and they were raking in the dough. I love Universal movies. I love The Wolfman. I love all of those movies. But what you have to consider is that Universal didn't love it the way we love it. Okay? It was a money grab. And as much as I love Son of Frankenstein, and as much as I love The Wolfman, the films that started to follow, House of Frankenstein, Frankenstein meets Wolfman, there was no real effort to create a horror movie. It was just let's pop off these thrills and keep making money. Universal doesn't even have half of the props anymore from those movies. They threw them away. They destroyed the Phantom of the Opera set. They didn't care. You know what I mean? It wasn't about that for them. I'm glad the movies exist. I'm glad we have them. But keep that in mind when we talk about Val Lewton. RKO wanted to do something. They saw Universal. So they said, here's your deal. We're going to make you the head of the B-movie unit, the horror division. You have 3 requisites for every movie that we give you. 1, it can be no longer than, I think, 70 minutes. It can't exceed a budget, as I want to say it was $140,000. Keep in mind, a lot of movies this time were like hundreds of thousands of dollars to make. And the studio had to pick the titles. So Val Lewton had no control. So, you got the cat people, and then everyone was expecting like the Wolfman, but with cats. That didn't happen because Val Lewton had a different idea of horror. He felt like the audience, needed something that they could relate to. So while it's great to be scared by the Wolfman, you don't identify with it as a 1940s post-depression era moviegoer. It's a shock, it's a thrill, and it's entertainment, and that is valid. But what Lewton wanted to do was actually bring in everyday life. And what I mean by that is when you watch the cat people, which we did, they did research on what people were wearing, how much money would Simone's character be making in New York City as a fashion designer? What clothes would she wear? So when people went to these movies, they saw themselves. And what Lewton did, to the chagrin of a lot of the people that he was working for, a guy named Lou Ostro at RKO, was he wasn't putting monsters in. He wasn't doing all these things that they were expecting, but he was bringing them in money because people were identifying with it. They saw a different brand of horror. And that's what I love about him. And I've been doing a lot more research on him and his movies. He was given a lot of bad titles, man. I Walked with a Zombie. Like, now, it's not bad, but in the 40s, that was as campy as you could get, okay? The Leopard Man, The Seventh Victim, that was not too bad. Isle of the Dead. They were pushing him in these directions that eventually became almost like a test. They were like, all right, we're going to make you do a horror movie. There's no way you can do a movie called The Leopard Man and it not be about a leopard man. And he did it. And, he proved his point. There's more in a shadow. A shadow can be anything you want. It can be someone you love waiting for you. It could be someone, your enemy waiting to murder you. Do you know what I mean? It could be anything. So he, I guess, gave more attention to the audience's intelligence. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wanted it to become anything. Anything could live in that darkness. So knowing that about Val Lewton, there's a lot of other movies I feel like you guys should check out, and I'll just throw one of them out there. It's a quick one. It's not very long. It is on Amazon Prime. I think it's $1.99, but I think all of them are right now. But it's Isle of the Dead. And I believe this was the first movie he did with Boris Karloff, who really didn't want to work in these types of movies, but like he saw Luton's scripts, and after that, I mean, from Isle of the Dead, you know, he did so many more. Bedlam, he did The Body Snatcher. He loved Val Luton, you know, and he really identified with that brand of horror. And like from Karloff's perspective, and many times he had said, you know, Val Luton was the quintessential, horror, like ground zero for that at that time in America for film. So Isle of the Dead, Ghost Ship's great too. I know they're all good. Check out Isle of the Dead. It's starring Boris Karloff. It's, again, don't expect, you know, a monster, although they talk about a monster. Just pay attention to it. It's really interesting. You know, it's one of those movies like The Cat People where you don't know what you know. You don't know is there a monster? Is it superstition? There's just so much stuff, and I've really just come to appreciate that so much more here lately. Universal horror is just a money grab. Yeah, it's true. The Dark Universe, I mean, you know, what they did with The Wolfman with Guillermo del Toro, I thought was great. And I was really, like, holding my breath that things were going to go that direction, but, you know. You know, and you can see it, too. Like, for example, Son of Dracula, Sam Vo brought that up. I'm not knocking on Lon Chaney Jr. Creighton Chaney Jr. is a valid actor, okay? But what you have to keep in mind is he was not really put into Lon Chaney's will, okay, or Helen Chaney. Most of their money went to a guy named John Jeske, who was Chaney's chauffeur. And this left Creighton jaded, and it left him without a lot of the stuff that he had anticipated on inheriting. You know, I'm not airing out family details because I have respect for the Cheneys, I do. I'm just saying he didn't really want to go necessarily into acting as Lon Chaney. They pushed him. And, you know, you can see that. Son of Dracula, if anyone took the time to think of the Son of Dracula, you can't go from Bela Lugosi to Lon Chaney Jr. with a pencil mustache. Like, it doesn't work. But they were selling it more because it was Lon Chaney and the name. And, you know, Dracula to them was just an extension of, you know, their bank account, unfortunately. So that's what I really love about that era of the RKO horror movies. So you guys are asleep now. All right, so listen, I'm going to hop off of here. I will, real quick, yeah, Chaney was great as Wolfman. I mean, he was great in a lot of stuff. He was more of, like, for me, when they needed an imposing character, you know what I mean? When he was, Frankenstein's monster, the Wolfman, any of those things, you know, Indestructible Man, that was it. Yeah, London After Midnight would have been a great thing to see. They remade it, Todd Browning, with Bela Lugosi and Carol Lombard. Is that right? I forgot her name. Mark of the Vampire. So it's loosely based on the same thing. It's not the same. But Carla Limley, which is Carl Limley's daughter, she had told my friend Cortland that she saw, and she was in Phantom of the Opera. She was the prima ballerina. She was in Dracula. She was the girl at the very beginning in the coach. Saying Borgo Pass. Blah 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 blah. She was the first person to speak in a Universal horror movie. She's had told Cortland that she saw London After Midnight and that it actually was not really a good movie. That a lot of people would probably be disappointed in it. By today's standards, but it had a good character. And really, I mean, that's all. If that's all that's left, at least we're left with that. But that got destroyed in vault number, I think it was vault 5, vault 7 at Universal. Because again, man, not a lot of care or concern taken towards storing these films. I mean, silver nitrate, aside from smelling like rotten eggs after so long, just dissolves and is highly, highly combustible. So a lot of those movies just completely exploded, caught on fire, and burned all the other movies down with them. So, anyway, thank you guys very much. Hope you have a good night. I'll see you either next week or the week after. I'll keep you posted. But thanks for coming along, and enjoy Isle of the Dead, and I will see you when I see you. All right, long live the horror.